Hello and welcome to Very Interesting. I'm your host, Phillip Britt. School starts soon and that means high school football games are just around the corner. Today, I welcome Dexter football coach Chad Jamerson to Very Interesting. Coach, welcome to the studio.
Well, thank you for having me.
Oh, we're thrilled to have you here. First off, congratulations on last year's season. It was amazing. We'll talk a little more about that as we go through the discussion today. But first off, tell us about yourself.
I'm an East Prairie graduate, born and raised in Southeast Missouri. Played football there, ran track. Went to University of Missouri in Columbia for a while, and then transferred down to Southeast Missouri, and the story goes from there. I was interested in broadcast journalism. That's what took me to the University of Missouri, and teaching is what brought me back. And I was fortunate enough to just get a break at a small school, and it's gone from there.
Absolutely. So one of the things, give us a little bit of your coaching background. Tell us how you got to where you are today at Dexter.
Through good friends. About 20 years ago, my friend who is now on staff with us, Jason Aycock, was head football coach at East Prairie, and he was stepping away to be an administrator. And another close friend, Corey Axon, took over the program and just said, "Hey, I know you're interested in being involved. Are you looking for a position?" And they gave me a volunteer position at East Prairie, and I was a volunteer for 2 years, and they were good enough to keep me on for a little while longer. And after 4 or 5 years, I went to Scott City and helped Jim May start out there. Learned a lot from Jim, spent some time there for 2 years, and got fortunate enough to come back to East Prairie. Jason made me his defensive coordinator, and then I took over as the head coach for close to a decade. Looked for a change, wanted to see what it was like at a bigger school. Kent Gibbs called, and if Kent Gibbs calls, you answer the phone.
Sure.
And took a spot with him on his staff and spent a year there, and liked being a part of his program, but still wasn't finished being a head football coach. Right. In 2020, when I was the head coach of East Prairie, we came to Dexter week 4 during the COVID year. And Dexter was the only place that didn't have as many restrictions on their crowds as everyone else, and the atmosphere was amazing. Squeaked out of there with a win that night. And in the car ride home, I looked at my wife and I said, if this job ever comes open, I think I'd be interested in it. And lo and behold, on a wintry January morning, I turned in an application, sent an email to an athletic director, and he was kind enough to call me back. And to be honest with you, it's like it's been a rocket ship since. It's just been one thing right after another.
Oh, that's great. I guess you're starting your 4th year?
Yes.
So what about being a Bearcat still appeals to you?
I love the community.
Yeah.
Being someone that is an outsider, you are never going to be from Dexter. Right. I've learned that. But I feel I've been embraced about as well as an outsider can be. Everywhere I go, people that I don't know me and say hello and always have something nice to say. Always have something encouraging to say. Now, I'm fully aware, of the situation. It may be different if the tables were turned, but the community has just been amazing to me. You couple that with a great student body. I have not had any discipline issues in 3 years at Dexter with any kids that I've dealt with, and I think that's a testament to the kind of school we have, the kind of administration and the culture that's been set up by everybody that's in front of me at the district. I just feel like with the facilities and with the community, with the other educators around me, I'm in about as good of a seat that I can be in.
To be a high school coach, you really have to have a passion for the sport and for the kids. So what sparked your passion for football?
I've always been a competitive guy. Even when I was young. Now, I wasn't a good athlete. I wasn't winning. I was still competitive. But my parents allowed me to explore that. And that really helped kind of build a passion as a competitor. I also had parents that had high expectations when it came to hard work. My father owned a construction company. My mother was a school teacher, and they drove me pretty hard. By the time I got in high school, I had some coaches that really influenced me. One in particular, my strength and conditioning coach, my track coach and assistant football coach, his name was Bernard Ivy. I had a great connection with Coach Ivy. and he really inspired me to be the best I could be. If you look at my classmates and guys that have come after me at East Prairie, I think they've produced 16 to 18 football coaches in the last 20 years. I think that speaks volumes about the coaches that are there currently and the coaches that came before us. There's influence there.
And it's not always about undefeated seasons.
No,
either, East Prairie's not always had those kind of records.
With the exception of my freshman year, we had to get better just to be bad. Yeah. You're taught so many things in athletics, and I also think so many things in football. Football's a team sport, and I believe it's the ultimate team sport because you got 11 people out there, and really you need about 44 people all bought in and pulling the wagon in the same direction. And those were lessons that we learned through athletics, and those are hopefully lessons that we're teaching now too.
Sure, absolutely. So you already mentioned that things have been good the last couple of years. Last year especially, it was an exceptional year for your football team. An undefeated regular season, district championship. You lost in the state quarterfinals. Just an amazing run. What did that season mean to you and your players, but also to Dexter High School?
To be honest with you, I'm still processing it. For me personally, it's very surreal. You toil for years and years and years, and you work at this craft, and you try to improve every day, and really, to be frank with you, dedicate your life to it. My wife tells me, in the nicest way, this is my ministry. But sometimes I'm not always at home preaching, I'm somewhere else. So you sacrifice a lot. So for me, it was vindication of, hey, I'm doing the right things as far as the football part's concerned, and still processing it. For our players, I think it's validation not only for their hard work, but for what the program that we're trying to instill in them is, hey, we can do the right thing. We can practice hard. We can focus on being hardworking. We can, focus on our effort and our accountability. We can have some grit about ourselves and expect ourselves to be tough and have high standards and high expectations, and it's still going to work out. When I first got to Dexter in the Mrs. Dowdy's office, she had a sign on her wall and it said, "You'll think of something." And at that moment, I knew what I wanted, where I wanted to go, and I knew what I wanted to do. But that sign really kind of was enlightening to me in that moment, because sometimes when you don't always know the answer, you'll think of something. And truth be told, I think we're all flying by the seat of our pants sometimes. We all act like we're experts, but we're all creatures and victims to experience. I've just been fortunate enough the last 3 years that I've had some really quality experiences.
Sure, absolutely.
For the community, at the end of the day, I believe that football is one of the kings of the community. We're always going to be competitive in basketball. We're always going to be competitive in baseball and track and field, and now we've got soccer coming in. But at the end of the day, history tells us that Dexter is a football community. All the way back to the undefeated team, I believe in 1964, to the teams through the 70s, those early 80 teams, those late 80 teams. 80s were a great decade for Dexter football. Through the traditions that were set up by Coach Pixley, now on to where we're at now. I think we're just trying as a group to niche our spot in that community. Everyone wants to leave a legacy. We're just working on ours.
I tell you, when Bobby Alford's one of our announcers at A-Corp Sports, and he told us at the end of the season before not last season, but the end of the season before, he said, "I think Dexter's going to win 9 games next year." I said, "Bobby, you're crazy. There's no way." Yeah. But he was bought into your plan, and he knew the kids, and his son was on the team. He knew those kids, and he was from the beginning. I mean, he called a lot of games, and he was as impartial as he could be. But he was 100% believing, before a lot of other people probably, that that's what was going to happen.
I think that's part of the job of a head coach, and as the rest of the coaching staff, is you can't get people to follow if you don't create believers.
Absolutely.
And I think if your message is clear, I think if you're honest and you're sincere about it and you're willing to put in the work, I think good things can happen. Now, what's your definition of good things? What's your definition of great things? As long as we're producing quality young men and preparing them for life to be good husbands, to be good fathers, to be contributors to the community. And that's the most important thing for me. I don't care what community you end up in, but we need leaders in our communities. We need leaders in our communities. Now more than ever, we need someone to step up as a young person in this community and contribute in positive ways to society. And as a football program, ultimately that's our number one goal. I heard a great quote one time, read a great quote one time, that I'm not going to be able to tell you how good this last senior class was until 20 years from now.
Sure.
Yeah, they were great at football, but I won't know how good of a job I did until I get invited to some baby showers, to some weddings, to some birthdays. And then we'll see how good of a job I've done. We pray every night that we've influenced kids to be their best. But you only know so much. But just like any parent or adult, we're going to give them every gift we can of wisdom and knowledge. We're going to send them out the door.
Sure. Same way with your own kids.
Yes, absolutely.
Your kids grow up, they become adults, and you hope that you instilled in them the things to make them successful adults.
It's scary, isn't it?
It sure is.
It's terrifying.
It sure is. And now my son has his own kids, and so when that happens, it's even, what did I do to model behavior that I want him to do with his children?
Yes.
So it's, I hear exactly what you're saying.
And now you get to spoil some children too, right?
100%, absolutely. So you mentioned those seniors that graduated last year. You're not going to know how great you did with them until down the road, but they were very good on the football field. Pretty much as good a team as Dexter's had in a long, long time, and certainly as good a team as there was around here last year. How do you replace those guys?
$1 million question, right? I think when it comes to any kid and any athlete that you've had, I don't think you can ever replace them. Yeah. Now, the guys that we've just lost have set that bar even higher. Arguably, I would say that Nolan Alford is probably the best football player I've ever coached. I would argue that Jackson Howard is one of the best leaders, not only from the quarterback position, but just as a young man that I've ever been around. Those guys, the wisdom of a Caden Lee and a Sawyer Rasher and a Peyton Hartline and a Zach Billingsley on your offensive line, those guys don't get replaced. What you've got to do, and where we're in a very fortunate position right now, is you have got to be in some ways, you got to see the future a little bit. And you've got to have a vision and a plan when a young man is in the 8th grade or coming to us as a freshman and say, okay, this is the direction we want to put this young man in. So, for example, you look at a Will Geatley. 2 years ago, coming out of middle school, we knew that sooner or later Will Geatley was going to have to get snaps. Well, we have made all the preparation that we can to get him ready to take over that quarterback position. Is he Jackson Howard? Absolutely not. They are two totally different young men. But they both have gifts in their own way to lead our offense. It's the same way with a Devin Turnbow. We've been fortunate to have a Devin Turnbow for 3 years. But the plans are in place already to not only enjoy the fruits of Devin's labor this year, but to have another tree growing behind him so we can, take advantage of a young talent like a Noah Tennant, who's a sophomore this year that'll get a lot of reps, or a Kel Pierman, those guys. So to be honest with you, while my mind is on this season, there are already preparations for the next few, because we want to make sure that we keep the standards high and we keep this ball rolling. It's not about one season, it's about a program. And that's kind of where we try to put some energy in. You don't put all that energy in there till December, but we're always trying to prepare for tomorrow.
So you talk about building a program, and you say a little bit about we've at least identified some people coming along behind the leaders of today. But how do you build a program? How do you, and I know you're not starting from zero. You didn't start from zero when you got here. Coach Pixley had some real buy-in from student athletes. But how do you build a program? Where do you start with kids to get them where you want them to be by the time they're high school kids?
I think in the beginning, I think with any organization, you need to have a vision of what you want that organization to be. I call it the roadmap theory. I guess I would. If I were to tell you that there was a locker with $1 million in a town called Butte, we've got some questions to answer. Where is Butte? How are we going to get there? And is $1 million really worth getting to that? So in the beginning, we sat down and we said, hey, there's a district title within our reach. How are we going to get there? And you start laying out your vision and your mission on the steps that are going to get you there. Now, you figure out those steps, and you've got to figure out what we believe our core values should be. Our core values are an acrostic called HEART. We believe in being hardworking. We believe in being competitive. We believe in being accountable and disciplined. We believe in giving relentless effort. We believe in being tough. You've got to sell those 5 principles and how they tie in to the steps along that map. And there are going to be road marks. There are going to be road stops, pit stops, however you want, rest areas, if you will, to get us to where we want to be. So in a lot of ways, you've just got to visualize it, I think, as a roadmap. And this is where we are. This is where we want to be. Hey, we're pretty fortunate. We got a good car at Dexter when I got here. We already had a good car. Now we got to put some gas in it and get to where we want to go. That would be my best way of explaining how to build a program. But it starts with vision, it starts with mission, and it starts with core values. Who do you want to be?
Right. So football's a little different than a lot of other high school sports. If you want to play basketball 12 months out of the year, you can play basketball 12 months out of the year. If you want to play baseball 12 months out of the year, you can probably find tournaments every weekend throughout the country. But football's not really like that. You don't have club teams where they travel, and it's not the same as some of those other sports. So what do you encourage your kids to do in the off season? So you've got your season in the fall, but in the off season, what do you encourage them to do so that they're prepared when it comes time for next season?
Well, number one, we have a strength and conditioning program. 7 hours a day it's offered. Really, to be honest with you, it's offered 8 hours a day. We offer a 0 hour, so if kids can't fit in their regular schedule, they can come in before school. And we encourage all our athletes, not just our football players, to be a part of that strength and conditioning program. The values of that program are, number one, injury prevention. We're going to do everything we can to get your body built to prepare you for your sport to prevent injuries, because it doesn't matter how strong you are, it doesn't matter how fast you are. If you're constantly hurt, you're not helping any coaches. So that's really our first philosophy, is get them in the strength and conditioning program. Let's get them as fast as possible. Let's get them as strong as possible. Let's max out their athletic potential. The other thing we encourage is for them to go be athletes. You know, in the winter, we want you playing something. Now, that's not for everybody. But if you can go out and play basketball, that's great. Tons of conditioning, solid footwork. If you don't want to play basketball, go wrestle. You know, wrestling is going to translate really well to what we do. Go wrestle. And then in the spring, we encourage you to do something. Go play baseball. Go be a part of track and field. You know, this is the first time I've been a part of a school that offers tennis, offers golf. Right. Go be a part of something. I think being a high school athlete, being a high school student, the goal is to get you as well-rounded as possible. And the only way you can become more well-rounded is through experience. Right. And not just experience through doing things, but being around different people. You know, that's why it's so important, I think, for students to not to go to a 4-year university or a 2-year university, but get out and get away from home and be around other people. Sure. I think that's how we make ourselves more well-rounded. So that's really the number 2 goal to prepare our kids in the off-season. Be more well-rounded. Go be in choir. Go be in band. Mm-hmm. Go do things that are going to enrich your high school experience. So strength and conditioning. Go be a part of other sports, other activities, enrich your high school experience. And then number 3, if you get some time, go out to the football field and throw a ball around. You know, I don't believe that football should be a 365-day program. Right. I don't want to be involved with football 365 days a year. So I think it would be inappropriate for me to ask a student to do the same. But we do ask them to keep us in the back of their mind, you know, to be focused on what we need to be focused on when it's time to go. I had a coach one time tell me that football is the only sport that you practice twice as much as you play. And that's the truth. You look at basketball, they play 2 games a week. You look at baseball, in some situations, 3-4 games a week.
Right.
Football, you get 1 game a week, but you got to practice 4 days.
That's true.
And that's why you only get 10 games in a year at least, just because it wears you down.
Sure.
It'll wear you down.
And during the season, basketball, baseball, they may only practice 1 time a week. If they've got multiple games, 2 or 3 games a week, they may only practice once a week, whereas you guys are going at it every day.
Oh, goodness.
Yeah. So speaking of that, I know you've already started working with the guys. When do you start kind of cranking things up in the summer, getting ready for football?
This year has been a little bit different just because we played football so much longer and played so much football these last 2 years. We kind of delayed some things. After the state track meet, we gave the kids off an entire week. I've never done that in 20 years. Gave the kids off an entire week, and then we just worked into our strength and conditioning program. We go 3 days a week, 6 a.m. with our high school football guys and 7:30. They've got the choice to come to one of those 2. Mostly because we have a lot of kids that are involved in other things. And then we did some 6 a.m. practices early in the summer to accommodate to baseball, to give those guys that play baseball the opportunity to be a part of that as well. Typically the 2nd to 3rd week in June, we really go hard for about 7 or 8 days. We have some 7-on-7 passing league stuff, and then we go up to Cape for a contact camp. We play against Cape, we play against Perryville, and we play against Fredericktown. It's really good for us to see those 3 teams. 2 bigger schools than us, one that is just full of athletes and had a couple state semifinal runs, 2 over the last 3 years. Perryville, an up-and-coming program. Same way with Fredericktown, a program that's going to be in our district that we'll see. So that's really good competition for us. And then we shut it down for 10 days. We shut it down through the 4th of July, and then we come back and we start lifting again 3 days a week. And then we've had 7 days of practice over the last 2 weeks. Next week, we'll just lift, and then we'll give them another 12, 13 days off, let them be kids in the summer, or as much as they can, squeeze out what little bit of summer they can,
right.
And then we're mandatory on August 11th. We start at 7:30 with lifting and meetings, and then it's real. The thing about the summer here, what I've learned, is no one is going to have the same summer schedule that I have. We ask our kids, if you're in town, be here. In a perfect world, yeah, every parent would schedule their vacations over the dead weeks, but that's just not the real world. People have schedules that they have to adhere to, and they have real life jobs. Mine's not, we always joke around at home. My wife is an educator, I'm an educator. We don't have real jobs. We get to hang out with kids all day. But there are people that have real life jobs, and we've got to understand that people have schedules, and we've got to work with that. And so we try to. The summer's important, but it's not as important as August 11th.
So August 11th, we know August 11th in Southeast Missouri is hot.
Yes.
I don't have it in front of me. I don't have the forecast, but I can tell you it's going to be hot.
Absolutely.
It's going to be hot. It's going to be humid. What precautions do you guys take to try to make that as healthful as it can be? I mean, it's going to be a challenge. Kids are going to get, hot, too hot sometimes. They've obviously got to drink as much as they can, all those kinds of things. Tell me how you keep them from getting too overheated or dehydrated.
Well, we've got to understand kids first and foremost. I think it comes down to understanding kids, and I think it comes down to having some common sense. When it comes to outdoor sports in August, things are very different from when I came up, when you came up, when our parents came up. It's just changed. Growing up, my father had a construction company. From June through it was time for mandatory practice, we were outside putting shingles on. That's what he did. He saved the shingling jobs for me. Kids were pitching hay. Kids were, chopping beans, whatever you will. But now kids are inside a lot more. So we've got to take that into account. We've got to be aware that kids probably are not going to be as assimilated to the heat. That's why the summer is important, our 20 days in the summer, to get them prepared. But, once they're there on August 11th, we start completely over. Absolutely no pads or equipment for 3 days. It's just a football and kids. And we take them out, and we just start getting them ready for the heat. Depending on what the temperature is, is the time span we have for water breaks. So if it is extremely hot, water breaks every 10 minutes. If it's not as hot, every 15 minutes. But the days of holding water from kids, that's long gone. We have plenty of access to water. So if a kid needs water at any time, we're not only taking our mandatory 5-minute breaks, but kids are free to get whatever they need. Also, too, we ask the kids to communicate with us. Coach, I don't feel right now. Okay, well, let's get you in some shade. Let's get some water on you. Let's check you out. And the game has changed too. We're fortunate enough that we have people there to help us monitor kids and monitor that heat illness. Where when we started 20 years ago, the idea of an athletic trainer at your facility was just silly, to be honest. So, the school has done a great job of educating us. The state of Missouri has done a great job of educating us, and so has the NFHS to prepare us before anything could happen. An ounce of prevention is worth a ton of cure, and that's really kind of what we're trying to take as our rule of thumb.
Yeah, I mean, every year or two you hear of a terrible, tragic situation where a kid gets overheated and dies from it, and you just hate that every time that happens. And that happens not just at high school, but in the college level too. We've seen that happen, and it's undoubtedly situations where they don't prepare, or they're not paying attention, or the kid's not communicating.
Absolutely. Heat illnesses are extremely sneaky. Most of us don't realize that we are too hot until we're too hot. Right. So we try to preach to our kids that hydration is cumulative. A little bit now goes a long way later on. And if they do a good job of taking care of themselves, as far as that, not only does hydration help prevent heat-related illnesses, but studies have shown that it also helps prevent concussions. So now we're not only protecting your brain with hydration, or your body with hydration, but protecting your brain too. So we're just trying to do everything we can to prepare them to just be safe.
And they also have to understand you can't drink enough water at the football field to be hydrated. You've got to be drinking it all day long to get to that point. I mean,
that's an excellent point. If you wait till you're thirsty, it's too late.
Right. So, well, Coach, I'm excited for you about the new year. So let's. You've kind of touched on this, but I'd really like you to give me, at the end of the day, what do you want your kids to get out of playing football, or track, or whatever you're doing with them? What do you really want them to leave with?
When they walk out the door, I want them to know that someone cares about them as more than just an athlete.
Coach Chad Jamerson, thank you so much for being on Very Interesting. Dexter High School coach Chad Jamerson joined us today on Very Interesting. So glad to have you, Coach, and we will see you next time.